The Indiana Hoosiers and head coach Kurt Cignetti are going to try and make it back to the college football playoff this season, and I think they can, but all of that revolves around transfer quarterback Fernando Mendoza.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, and it is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. We're going to talk Indiana basketball as their game versus Marquette is finalized. We have a tip time, we have a TV channel, and we know the details of Indiana and Marquette in downtown Chicago. Plus, we'll take a look at what we think could be the Indiana football depth chart since we don't have one and probably won't get one before this Saturday. But speaking of this Saturday, and speaking of Indiana football, we've talked so much about how the Hoosiers can absolutely get back to the college football playoff. I believe that, a lot of you believe that, and even some of the experts believe that too. Not many, but some. And while I think that's a legitimate goal and a legitimate possibility for this Indiana football team under head coach Kurt Cignetti in year two, I think it all relies and revolves and leans on your starting quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. He's a transfer from California, a guy who proved he can win in a place that didn't have a whole lot of talent, and he steps in with massive expectations. And I think all of the pressure is on him. I think everything revolves around the performance of your transfer portal quarterback. And while there's a lot of teams that can say that, there's a lot of teams that are relying on their transfer guy, Carson Beck down at Miami, or, just different players around the country that you feel they have to have good quarterback play if they want to do something special this season. It is what it is. But it seems to be that there might be too much pressure on Fernando Mendoza. Maybe we're putting too much on his shoulders, given the fact that we've never seen him play at Indiana before, the fact that he's going to be playing better competition than he's ever seen in his life before. He played 2 years at California, folks. One when they were in the Pac-12, RIP, and another when they were in the ACC, which was the worst Power 4 conference last year. I'm not saying he won't be good, because I think Fernando Mendoza is really good. And I've talked about that on several different shows and different podcasts and things like that. I think Mendoza is a really good quarterback. You're talking about somebody who threw for 3,000 yards last year, had 16 touchdowns, just 6 interceptions at California. That team was terrible. They weren't any good. They had not a lot of talent. A couple of guys were decent, but not a whole lot of talent, especially on that offensive line. And he went on the road and beat a team in the SEC. Fernando Mendoza is a good quarterback, and he makes the right decisions. He's smart with the football and has a really, really good arm. I'm just worried that we have put this expectation on him that he truly is going to be a Heisman contender or a first-round draft pick, or all of Indiana's hopes are on the shoulders of Fernando Mendoza, 15 in red. Is that the case? Well, you tell me. You can make that call for yourself. I think it is, because I've even said it on our Big Ten squad shows about if Indiana gets to the playoff, it's on their quarterback. It's based off of good quarterback play. That's how they got there last year, right? Wouldn't you say that Curtis Rourke led them to the college football playoff a year ago? Sure, the defense was good, the receivers made plays, and the running back room was stacked, but it was the play of Curtis Rourke that got you to the college football playoff. I think that's the case once more with Fernando Mendoza. I just hope that it doesn't come back to bite us, because what if, it's my favorite game, what if Fernando Mendoza is not as good as we think he is? What if he doesn't perform at a high level like we expect him to? What if he's not the next Curtis Rourke? What if he's not the next great quarterback at Indiana? Is this team good enough to still win games with average, mediocre, kind of good quarterback play? I think you're good enough to beat the Michigan States of the world, the UCLAs, Marylands, and Northwesterns on your schedule. Well, there's no way that you can beat Illinois or Iowa or go on the road to Eugene or Happy Valley and try and get a win with average quarterback play. It's just not going to happen. And so we're kind of putting all our eggs in one basket here because, yeah, you got dudes who are backups for this Indiana team at the quarterback spot, but Fernando Mendoza is the dude. He is the guy. You have put everything you own on Fernando Mendoza and hoping that it works out, which is risky, but it's a high risk, high reward because I do think he's really, really good. Where I'm getting at here is everything Indiana wants to do this season revolves around Mendoza. And so I hope that this Indiana staff has made him comfortable. I hope they've made this system around him. They've built it around him. They've molded it around him, right? Sure, they're going to keep the basic structure of what they do that was successful last year, but you want to formulate a couple of things to the strength of your quarterback, which I think him and Curtis Rourke are similar, but have just a few differences. I hope that they've done that for him. And I hope that the timing is on between him and his receivers, which luckily you have these first 3 games to really narrow that down if you're Mendoza and all the guys in that room. And then you're going to need some help, right? You need help from the guys up front, whatever that rotation ends up looking like. Your communication between you and Pat Coogan, your center, whatever your running back rotation is going to look like. More on that in just a moment. And then you've got to make sure you have a defense that is going to help you out as well. And I think they will. But all of that can be good, but you still have to get elite play from Fernando Mendoza because I think this team is very good, but the schedule's even harder. And in today's era of college football, man, it used to not be this way. Mid-2000s, even the early 2010s, you didn't have to have an elite quarterback to win the national championship, to get to a New Year's Six Bowl. You didn't have to have it. You could have a good running game, a good defense, and have a big play here and there, and you were a good football team. But then all of a sudden, Cam Newton started coming through, and Lamar Jackson started coming through, and then Tua, and then, all these guys, Justin Fields, all these guys started coming through the game of college football, and it was like, oh, maybe you do need an elite quarterback now because of how the offense has changed in college football over time. And so now, yeah, you do have to have an elite quarterback, and we need Fernando Mendoza to be that. Am I truly saying that he needs to be sitting in New York for a Heisman Trophy ceremony by the end of this season for Indiana to reach the goals that they have? No, but he's got to be dang close. He's got to be close. He's got to be a top 3 quarterback in the Big Ten. He's got to be a top 10 quarterback in the country. I think that can happen. I think that's a possibility, but he's going to have some help. And I think his team and the talent around him will be better than he's ever seen, but so will the defenses that he's going up against as well. He's got time to figure it out. He's got time to get comfortable. But his first true test is Illinois, and then you play Iowa on the road. We're going to learn a lot about Fernando Mendoza as a starting quarterback in the Big Ten, and I think everything that the Hoosiers want to do this season rests on the shoulders of your transfer quarterback. All right, coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers, we'll continue talking some football because we don't really have a depth chart, but we could talk about one for fun. We do that coming up next here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th, that's today, is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours right now, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling for your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or you're ready to crown a Super Bowl champ before week 1 even begins, this is your moment. Look, we talked about the Colts yesterday, but maybe you don't cheer for the Colts. Maybe you are a Miami Dolphins fan. Maybe you're a Texas or a Houston Texans fan. Maybe you're a San Francisco 49ers fan. Whatever team you cheer for, if you're confident and you say, you know what? I think this is our year. I think this is it. I think we're going to make and win the Super Bowl this year. Now's the time to sprinkle a little cash on there because with FanDuel's Futures Day, they're giving you great odds and big payouts, and today is the day to do that. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. All right, welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. And hey, before we move on, just a quick request from all of us here at Locked On. We want to hear from you. We've put together a survey, really just to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast like Locked On Hoosiers even better. And so this is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and answer any questions about our advertising and the folks that are partners with us. And so go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now, and you can do that, okay? Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. So take a couple of minutes, tell us what we're doing right, tell us what we're doing wrong, and you may walk away with a $100 Amazon gift card. All right. That's lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. You can also find the link in our show notes after this. So we really appreciate you doing that. And so let's talk a little Indiana football depth chart, because as you have probably seen and heard by now, and if you were around last year, you know this as well, we're not going to get one before we play Old Dominion on Saturday. It is what it is. Some coaches and programs give you a depth chart. Most of the time, it's an unofficial depth chart. But Indiana doesn't do that. Curt Cignetti doesn't do that, because let's just be honest here. Any depth charts that you're seeing right now in week 1 of college football, I say unofficial with air quotes, but that's kind of accurate at the same time. They're not all 100% true, right? Depth charts right now are, hey, these are the guys that have played well. These are the guys that could see some playing time and could see some action, right? And so even if Indiana had one, we would go through it and kind of break it down. But I would tell you several times, don't live and die by this, because take the running back room, for example. We heard some quotes from Curt Cignetti the other day about yesterday, that is, about the running back room in particular. And he said, look, we're having to replace 2 really good guys. Your top 2 rushers from a year ago, Justice Ellison and Tyson Lawton. Now we've got 3 dudes in the room who we believe in. The returner and Kaelon Black, and the 2 transfers of Roman Hemby from Maryland and Lee Bebee Jr. from UAB. We like all 3 of those guys. And he said it would probably be Black, Hemby, and Bebee. But all 3 are going to see time. All 3 are going to see snaps. And especially early on in this season, with 3 cupcake games that you should win by a combined 200 points, you should see all 3 of those guys. And they all will get significant snaps and playing time. And hopefully all 3 of those guys will be used in different ways and different formations and different play calls and things like that, to where you truly get to see who is going to be your best option when Illinois comes to town. I just, looking at it from the outside at the running backs in particular, I think Kaelon Black is probably the guy you have the most confidence in, at least carrying the football. I think Roman Hemby's got a little bit more size. Don't sleep on Lee Bebee Jr., but I think Kaelon Black's probably your dude. But if it comes down to any of those guys, I think from what we've seen and what we've heard, I have confidence there. But on a depth chart, it would say Kaelon Black or Roman Hemby or Lee Bebee Jr. And it's like, all right, well, that doesn't give us a whole lot. I expected to be Kaelon Black to run out there for the first offensive possession on Saturday afternoon. But as I've said, I expect all 3 to play significant time this weekend and significant time over the next several weeks. So you look at it from that perspective, and it's like, all right, well, do we really need a depth chart before week 1? Probably not. And there are some that we don't need one. Fernando Mendoza, we know you're the man. We know who your starting 2 receivers are, right? Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper. We've talked about who can kind of be in that rotation behind them. You've got Holden Stays and Noah Nowakowski for the tight end position. Your linebacker, we know Aiden Fisher. We feel like we know the starter there, but then the back end rotation, that's really where the depth chart's going to come in and try to see who plays on Saturday and things like that. But I do want to say this too. With this Indiana team and this Indiana staff in particular, and I think Cignetti has said this a couple of times, just because you start doesn't mean you're going to play the most snaps. And it doesn't mean that you're just leaps and bounds better than the guy behind you. Or if you're the guy behind him, it doesn't mean that you're just so much worse than him that you're terrible and you're never going to see the field. That's not really how Indiana rolls. And thankfully, in such a quick amount of time, because of what Curt Cignetti and his staff did through recruiting and through the transfer portal, you have depth. You have depth on this team. And so just because someone starts at the safety position doesn't mean they're going to play 85% of those snaps. There are guys behind him who can step in and play. If he gets winded, if he gets hurt, if he's just not playing well, there are guys who can step in and be starting caliber players when their name is called. That's the benefit that the Hoosiers have. That's the good thing that we're talking about here. And so when you look at it from that perspective and that angle, you feel like you're in a really good spot. And so I look at this and I feel really good about where the Hoosiers stand. Another example, the cornerback room. D'Angelo Pines is on one side. All right, cool. Then we were trying to figure out, well, is it going to be a Marion Knighton from Northern Illinois, who I really like? Is it going to be Rylan Gandy, the Pittsburgh transfer, who I also really like? No, Kurt Signetti said, nope, it's Jamari Sharp, the returner. He's going to come back a year from last year and be the starter on the opposite side of D'Angelo Pines. That's a great example of somebody who came back getting playing time, but I have confidence, just me personally, in Rylan Gandy and Amaria Knighton. I think those are two really, really good transfer pickups. We talked about them in December when they happened. I love both of those players. And I think if they were to have their name called at any time in these first 3 games or even in Big Ten play, I'm excited. I'm ready to see them. But I'm also ready to see Jamari Sharp, who has clearly earned the starting position. But that's kind of the example I'm talking about, is Sharp's a great player, and he's going to play starter snaps, but those other dudes are going to get in because D'Angelo Pines can't play every snap either. And you need those guys to step up and be starting caliber, Big Ten caliber guys. And that's what you're going to have in the DB room as well. And so depth chart, no, we're not going to have one. And we get to see what the defensive line rotation looks like, what the true starting offensive line looks like. And you know, the O-line's a little bit different too, just because you'll see some rotation up there when necessary, but you want to try and keep the starters in as long as you can and keep them together. Hopefully, at least for this weekend in particular, you have this thing in control come mid-third quarter, fourth quarter, to where, yeah, you can get some of those backup guys in there. You can get Benson if he doesn't start, or you can get, right, Mikulski if he doesn't start, which I think he will. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you can have some of these dudes who may not start against Old Dominion, but you have an opportunity to get them in. And that lets you see what you have. That also lets you see, okay, we can count on this guy when we're in a big time game against Iowa on the road. Or maybe you see somebody in these first 3 games. It's like, man, he looked really good in practice, but yeah, I don't think I trust him to go in on the road at Oregon. You know, that's what you do get to do in these 3 games. And I've been very vocal about not enjoying these 3 games, at least 3 of them in a row. I think 2 is fine, 3 is too much, but you do get to learn those. And we will have a much better idea on what the Indiana football depth chart is going to look like after this game against Old Dominion, and of course, after the next 2 games as well. We have a pretty good idea, but excited to see what that all looks like against the Monarchs, a sold-out Memorial Stadium, by the way. We get to see that, and excited for that coming up on Saturday. All right, coming up in our final segment of Locked On Hoosiers, Indiana and Marquette on the hardwood in downtown Chicago. The game is finalized. We know the details. We talk about that and why it's awesome coming up next. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Rugiet. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis, and maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take up to hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in just 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked for you, Rugiet might just be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch, and you can do so today. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's IET.com/LockedOnCollege and use the promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off your order. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, and manufacturing review. Please visit Rugiat website for full safety information. All right, final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers, and we flip over to basketball in just a moment, but just want to say thank you to everybody who continues to support this show, whether you like all of our videos or you comment down below on YouTube, subscribing to the channel. All of those things help us out, okay? So thank you so much for doing that. We really appreciate it. And to all of our audio listeners as well, if you're following us or have your notifications turned on, thank you for doing that. And if you haven't done any of those things, go ahead, do it right now. That all helps us grow, and we really do appreciate you and your support of everything we're doing here at Locked On Hoosiers. All right, so a final segment here, talking a little basketball quickly about Indiana and Marquette. Now, we've known that this game was on the schedule, and we know that it's game 2 of this upcoming season for head coach Darren DeVries and Indiana basketball, which is fantastic, by the way. I think getting a big time game like this right out of the gate. Two teams that, when you look at some way too early bracketologies, both teams are bubble teams right now in the NCAA tournament. And so it may not be the Marquette of old, but that's okay. I think they're going to be good. I think it's a team that will be a competitor in the Big East, at least for now. Could they exceed expectations? Sure. But at least for now, I think there's someone who will compete in their conference. And again, a bubble team is what most experts are saying as of right now, which is kind of where Indiana is someone who, yeah, they could compete in the Big Ten and they could make the NCAA tournament, but the jury's still kind of out, right? Perfect opportunity. If Marquette was a top 10 team in game 2, I'd be like, ooh, maybe this isn't what we want to this level yet. But I think this is a perfect opportunity for the Hoosiers to come together with Marquette. Sunday, November 9th. And now we have a time, we have a channel, 1 o'clock in the United Center, downtown Chicago on ESPN. That's right. The entire country on a Sunday afternoon will be able to watch you play Marquette on the hardwood. And that's going to be awesome, man. That's a great opportunity for so many people across the country to see this brand new looking Indiana team. Now, it is only game 2, and it may not be pretty basketball. Who knows? We're just going to have to wait and see. But you get a Sunday afternoon prime, maybe not prime time slot, but just a midday slot on ESPN. I know there's NFL stuff going on, but we're going to be watching Indiana basketball, and I cannot wait for this game to get here. Remember, you've got your 2 exhibition games that we talked about coming up against Marion and then Baylor. Then you tip off the season. Wednesday, November 5th, you host Alabama A&M in Assembly Hall for the first game of the Darren DeVries era. We know what the non-conference schedule looks like. Marquette, UW-Milwaukee, you've got Incarnate Word, Lindenwood, Kansas State is another P4 team. Remember, that game's going to be held inside of Assembly Hall Tuesday, November 25th, Bethune-Cookman. Then you make another road trip and go to Indianapolis. I say a road trip, neutral site game, if you will, against Louisville, which is such a big game too, man. That's on Saturday, December 6th. Don't forget after that, you get a week off before you head to Lexington and take on the Kentucky Wildcats. You'll then come back and host Chicago State and host Siena as well. There will be a couple of Big Ten games mixed in there, I believe, as long as that's still the scheduling format for this year. And then once you get through Siena, then you'll really ramp up your full Big Ten schedule. So plenty of games in there for you to get comfortable, work on your rotations. Same way we were just talking about Indiana football, right? With your 3 easy non-conference games to start. This looks like a typical non-conference schedule for basketball. You've got plenty of chances to play good teams. Marquette, Kansas State, Louisville, and Kentucky. 4 is fine because Kentucky is going to be really, really good. Louisville, I think, is really good. Marquette is good. And Kansas State, I don't know. They lose a lot from last year, but it's a big name and a team that's at least going to challenge you running up and down the floor with P4 talent. So those 4 games should be good for me. I'm excited for what those games are going to hold, and hopefully what we get to display as well. And then after that, yeah, go and win your games. Play a rotation. You've got 10 guys. You're trying to figure out who you want to start and bring in. And hey, you do have Asimovich, who is on the team now. He's on campus. He's a part of this program now. And so you're trying to work all of that in, plus your 2 exhibition games, one of those being against another Big 12 team in Baylor. So there's really no excuse or reason for this team not to feel ready and battle tested by the time you get to true Big Ten play. You should have everything you need. All the answers are there. You should have plenty of time and examples and opportunities to figure these things out. And whether that's trying to figure out your true starting 5, or whether it's who's your 6th man, or look, maybe the offense just isn't working the way you want it to, or maybe the defense is lacking, or maybe you're worried about the inside game. I don't really know. I'm just kind of throwing out ideas here on what you can learn in these first few games, but I just love the idea of this game against Marquette Sunday afternoon on November 9th, 1 o'clock in the United Center, downtown Chicago on ESPN. I hope a lot of fans go. I think there will be a ton of fans for Indiana and Marquette, 2 very passionate fan bases who should be at this game, and a game that could come down to be a resume builder for the NCAA tournament. Think about this. Marquette could be a resume builder. Kansas State, I don't know yet, just because we don't know what they're going to be, but Louisville and Kentucky, absolutely. And my thing is, just win one. Just win one of those games. Indiana fans would probably like to beat Kentucky more than Louisville, but there's a better chance that Indiana beats Louisville than Kentucky, because Louisville's not as good as Kentucky. Still very good, but not as good. And that game is in Indianapolis versus having to go to Rupp Arena. So all I'm saying is, you can beat Marquette, you can beat Kansas State, and take one of Louisville or Kentucky, and your non-conference resume looks pretty darn good, if you're asking me. So it's right around the corner. Cannot wait. Just a reminder that you will have your exhibition games against Marion on Friday, October 17th, and then Sunday, October 26th is against Baylor. That is at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, so keep that in mind as well. That's a good thing, because that's where you're playing Louisville this year, so you'll get a first game in there, a game that doesn't technically count, but you'll have some familiarity with that arena, with the backdrops, with the locker rooms, all that type of stuff. And so, man, if you can't tell, I'm excited for basketball. We're not wishing away football, but Indiana basketball is truly right around the corner. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here and supporting the show, however that you do. And hey, if you want some more content, some more Indiana news and entertainment and things, I've created a free Substack that you can go and be a part of. Go and subscribe to that for free. We'll link it down below. I post about it on our social medias as well. It's just a daily post of Indiana news, and kind of similar to what we're doing here, just some information and easy read for you to go and check out. And so be sure you go and check out the Substack. Again, I'll have it linked down below. You can check that out each and every day if you're looking for more Indiana content. All right, we are back tomorrow, Hoosier fans, for another episode. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.